Hey everyone, welcome back to the Mass Retirees Weekly Update. Today's Friday, December 1st. I'm Sean Duhamel. Thank you so much for joining with us and tuning in again this week. Now, first of all, I can't believe it's December 1st. This year has just flown by. We just got 4 weeks left of 2023, but I've got a couple of really important things to talk about this week. Now, let me dive right in. First of all, we have our final in-person area meeting taking place this coming Tuesday, December 5th. So it's a different day of the week we're meeting on, but we'll be in Auburn, Mass. At the Auburn Elks on December 5th at 11 a.m. It is our traditional start time. Our meetings run roughly an hour and a half, give or take. It is a great opportunity for you to come meet us to meet you. If you have questions or concerns or anything you want to talk to any of us about in person, our area meetings are a great place to do that. We're always available before the meeting and again after the meeting to talk one-on-one. We also welcome you to bring a guest. So if you have a spouse that you want to bring or a friend, someone that you know who's a public retiree or an active employee who's thinking about retiring, bring them along. Hopefully they'll leave well informed, and if they're not yet a member, would love for them to join with us. So again, Tuesday, 11 a.m., Auburn Elks. Now, our 2024 area meeting schedule is going to kick off in January. The full listing of our January and February meetings are contained in the January newsletter, which just went to press yesterday afternoon. It will be in your mailbox before Christmas. We'll have a mail date coming up in a week or so. We'll be able to let you know when you can expect to receive it. It is chock full of information on everything from the cost of living adjustment to Social Security, WEP and GPO, to a bunch of healthcare news. So it's something that we always look forward to getting in your hands. But look on page 3 of the newsletter. That will give you your full listing of upcoming events. So with that, let me jump right into the news of the week, which is quite a lot to walk through. Now, if you read last week's message or watched the video that came out a week or so ago about the Social Security WEP and GPO hearing that took place almost 2 weeks ago now on Monday, November 20th, so the Monday before Thanksgiving, the House Ways and Means Committee, along with the Subcommittee on Social Security, held a congressional field hearing in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And the topic of the hearing, or the focus of the hearing, was the impact of the windfall elimination provision, the WEP law, and the government pension offset, the GPO law, the impact of these two federal laws on public retirees. And they invited 4 Louisiana retired public employees to testify before this congressional hearing. They did a fantastic job of laying out the impact and the unfairness of these two laws on our public retirees. Now, as you hopefully know by now, Massachusetts is one of a handful of states that our entire public workforce operates outside of Social Security. So virtually every single person retiring from Massachusetts from this point forward will be impacted by WEP or GPO. So this is super important to our current membership as well as all of our future members as well. So we put a lot of time and effort into focusing on WEP and GPO, and this has been an issue dragging on now for 40 years. And we are 40 years past due with Congress taking some type of action. So we reported on the hearing itself a week ago, and you can look to the upcoming newsletter for also a full report on what transpired at the hearing. But we thought it would be a good idea to provide you with some analysis and key takeaways of things that we thought were important, the developments that came out of the hearing. Now, the first main takeaway is that the pressure being brought by retirees around the country, and again, there are 2 million retirees who are impacted by the WEP, and about 750 or so thousand retirees who are impacted by the GPO. So we're talking nearly 3 million Americans who are harmed each and every day by WEP and GPO, and that number grows as new people retire. This is not a problem that's going to go away in time. The problem's only getting worse as more and more people are impacted. Now, because of social media and because of the work that's being done by organizations like Mass Retirees and the Texas Retired Teachers and all of the public employee unions and individual retirees and groups of retirees that have formed through these different social media networks, the pressure being placed on Congress is greater than ever before. And the fact that this hearing took place about 2 weeks ago is proof positive that that pressure is having the desired impact. Now, of course, we would have loved to have seen these issues either been repealed or reformed many years ago. But for various reasons, that has not taken place, and here we are today. But the pressure being placed on Congress resulted in the public hearing taking place, and we think it is going to lead to positive next steps. I'm personally very optimistic going forward after listening to the hearing and hearing the feedback from members of Congress and just the level of activity that's taking place all around the country, driving all in the same direction for Congress to finally do something about WEP and GPO. So that's the first key takeaway, that the advocacy and the pressure is working, and we just need to keep our foot on that gas pedal and keep it up. The second main takeaway is that all 4 witnesses were fantastic. They did a great job laying out the problems that these 2 laws have created all across the country that impact retirees. The testimony that we all heard, and if you haven't watched the hearing, please do so. It's linked in today's email. It's on our Facebook page. It's also on the massretirees.com website. So you can go on, you can watch the hearing. But the 4 witnesses who testified, and it was a police officer, a firefighter, a teacher, and a retired state employee, all from Louisiana. And they really laid out what we are hearing every single day from members just like you who call and email and write and come to our meetings. Everyone's having the same problem with the financial devastation that WEP and GPO have caused. So I cannot thank those retirees enough. They did a fantastic job laying out the case of why these 2 laws need to be changed. The third key takeaway, and this was something that was really focused on by Chairman Jason Smith, who of course is the Republican chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, and other members of the committee focused on this as well. And Nancy McGovern and I, when we were in Washington last month and met with Chairman Jody Arrington from the House Budget Committee, as well as the Republican and Democratic staff of the Ways and Means Committee, a common theme we were hearing is the lack of notification that WEP and GPO exist in terms of our public workers. Think about it, when you were hired, you probably did not know back then anything about WEP and GPO, only to learn much later on, and in some cases, once people actually retired. We get calls from members who did not know of WEP and GPO until they literally went to Social Security, applied for the benefit, and then were told, oh, by the way, because you're a public retiree, your benefit's going to be reduced because of the WEP. Or, by the way, because you're a public retiree, your spousal Social Security benefit has been completely wiped out and you will receive nothing. That's devastating news for people. So at the very least, something needs to be done to better inform folks when they're hired in these jobs in the first place, and certainly our public workers going forward need to be aware of the impact of WEP and GPO on their eventual Social Security benefit if they do qualify. So one of the things that was really laid bare through this hearing is all 4 witnesses testified to the fact that they did not know much, if anything, of these 2 laws until much later in their careers or when they went to eventually retire. So we think that that's something that the committee will continue to focus on and perhaps include some language changing those laws in the way that Social Security needs to notify folks going forward. A 4th key takeaway, and this was really of no surprise, is that there's a true lack of understanding of the ins and outs of how WEP and GPO work, how benefits are calculated under these 2 laws, who is impacted or not, and also what the overall impact of the windfall elimination provision. Now, one of the witnesses testified at the hearing that he believed that his wife, who's a private sector worker and will be receiving a private sector pension benefit, and that she earned her full Social Security benefit on her own, he was concerned that in the event of her receiving a survivor pension, if he passes away and he took the equivalent of option C in Louisiana, he was concerned that her Social Security benefit would be reduced because of the government pension offset. Now, thankfully, that's not the case. WEP and GPO only apply to the public retiree themselves, not your spouse. If your spouse is a private sector retiree, is not receiving their own public pension, WEP and GPO do not apply to them. Now, thankfully, at the hearing or after the hearing, the staff of the Ways and Means Committee, who are experts on Social Security, they probably know more about these programs than anyone else, they were able to grab the witness and explain to him that no, that he was incorrect. His wife's benefits will not be reduced if she is eventually receiving a survivor benefit. And hopefully this gave him some peace of mind, but it really just spoke to the fact that many retirees and active employees really do not understand one way or the other of how WEP and or GPO may impact them. Another thing that is clear, and just from the conversations we have with members, reading your comments online, and also from some of the testimony, is that many people misunderstand how the WEP is calculated and what the impact on their Social Security benefit may or may not be. And there's a lot of information here, so please refer to today's email blast that is going out to all of our members. This information will also be included in the January newsletter, which, as I explained, is at the printer as we speak. But in a general sense, there is a maximum WEP reduction that can be applied in any given year. And the way that it is applied is based on the year you became eligible for Social Security. That generally occurs when someone is 62 years of age. So if you have your 40 quarters, which is the equivalent of 10 years of work, that triggers eligibility for Social Security. So at 62 with 40 quarters, you are then eligible to receive Social Security. Whether or not you choose to begin to take Social Security at age of 62 is irrelevant. What is relevant here is when you become eligible for it. And again, once you have your 40 quarters, you then become eligible at age 62. So for someone turning 62 and becoming eligible for Social Security in 2023, the maximum WEP reduction is $557.50 per month. That's the most that the WEP is going to reduce your Social Security benefit by. Now, we hear from members all the time and read your comments and so forth that believe that thousands of dollars a month are being reduced from your Social Security benefit. That's just not true. That's not correct. That's not the way this works. If you are receiving a small Social Security benefit, it is most likely due to the fact that you only achieved 40 quarters or 10 years of contributions into Social Security. Maybe it was many years ago, and the income that those contributions were based upon was very small. Those are the various factors that can lead to a Social Security benefit being very small or being very modest. But the most it can be reduced, again, for someone becoming eligible for Social Security in 2023 is $557.50 a month. So even if we are to fully repeal WEP and GPO, it is only going to restore the amount of money that was taken away by the WEP. Now, obviously, you deserve every penny that you paid for and that you earned. But we want to make sure that we're managing expectations and that we don't lead members or retirees to believe that you're going to see this windfall of thousands of dollars a month being restored when that's just not the case. Now, if you go online, and we'll have it linked in today's email blast, but Social Security on their website has a full chart of the WEP reductions. If you have 20 years or less of payments into Social Security or quarters earned, then you'll receive the full WEP reduction in that year. If you have between 21 and 29 years of service under Social Security, then that WEP reduction is proportional. The closer you get to 30 years of service, the less of a reduction the windfall law will bring. And of course, at 30 years of substantial contributions under Social Security, the windfall law goes away altogether. And we have more and more members because of the years of service that you've paid into Social Security, and even some members who are working into retirement who eventually see themselves becoming completely exempt from the WEP because they hit that magic 30 year of substantial earnings under Social Security. And again, this information will be contained in the newsletter, and it's also contained in today's email blast that went out to all of our members this morning. So if you're a member of Mass Retirees, please look to those two publications for greater information on this and to help you make a little bit more sense of exactly what I'm talking about, because I know this is confusing and complicated, and it's hard to follow me just talking about it right now. The last key takeaway from the hearing is that we don't know what action Congress may take going forward. Now, we think it's a very important step, and as I said earlier, I'm very encouraged that this hearing took place. I'm very encouraged by the comments from the members of Congress, particularly from Chairman Smith, who is going to play a key role in deciding what comes next. Because let's face it, the Chairman of Ways and Means carries a great deal of influence over any type of change like this. And not to say that it's the end-all, be-all of what he thinks or what he wants, but his colleagues, particularly on the Republican side, are going to look very closely to Jason Smith for leadership in terms of what comes next on this issue. So it is really important of listening to what he has to say and trying to analyze the takeaways from that. Now, obviously, there is universal agreement, by and large, that WEP and GPO are flawed and they need to be changed. Whether or not that universal agreement that the law is flawed results in a full repeal of WEP and GPO, that remains to be seen. But it seems very likely that we're going to see some type of change with these laws, and I truly hope that they occur during the current congressional session, which runs until January of 2025. So we essentially have about 13 months left of the current session. Now, the first thing we expect to happen is that one or more public hearings are most likely to occur probably in the first quarter to 6 months of 2024. The reason why I say that is the language used at the hearing. Again, going back to Chairman Smith and his comments, he several times during the hearing mentioned hearings were taking place. That's plural. To me, that means that more than one hearing is planned. So what we're anticipating is that a hearing most likely will take place in Washington, D.C. sometime early into 2024 that will focus more on what can be done to fix this and change this. We'll probably hear testimony from members of the Social Security Administration, most likely the Social Security actuary and perhaps others, talking about the financial impact on the Social Security system if various changes are to be made. Also talking about the administrative changes, going back to providing information and accurate benefit calculations for future retirees. That will also involve the Social Security Administration. We also believe that Congress will be taking testimony on the various WEP and GPO proposals now pending. H.R. 82 is the largest bill, which would be full repeal of WEP and GPO. Is filed by Congressman Garrett Graves from Louisiana and Abigail Spanberger from Virginia. They are the Republican and Democratic co-sponsors, respectively. H.R. 82 now has more than 300 co-sponsors in the House of Representatives and is really the bill that's talked about most often with WEP and GPO. However, we are still unsure of whether or not that legislation will move forward or if we'll see a more tempered approach of reforming both the WEP and the GPO. Our hope is that even if a reform bill goes through, it will include WEP and GPO this time around and not exclusively focus on the windfall elimination provision. I think the testimony we heard at the hearing really is indicative of the fact that both of these laws need to either be repealed or reformed, but retirees cannot afford to continue to wait for congressional action to take place. Now, we will be back in Washington, D.C. We're scheduled to be there in mid-January for a National Pension Conference, the annual NCPERS Legislative Conference. Obviously, if there's a reason to be in Washington sooner than that, if there's going to be a public hearing, for instance, we will be there for that. We are in regular communication with both sides of the aisle, so whether it's Jason Smith's staff or Congressman Neal's staff, and of course Congressman Neal remains the ranking Democrat on the Ways and Means Committee, so he is going to continue to play a pivotal role in whatever may move forward. But we're going to keep you informed as to what is going on, what we're seeing. But in the meantime, going back to what I said with the first takeaway, the pressure that all of you are bringing to Congress on this issue, it's working. I know that we have been talking about this for far too long. I've personally now been involved in working on this issue for nearly 30 years. It has been a very long time, and a solution is very much overdue. But we got to keep our foot on the proverbial gas pedal, because the squeaky wheel always is going to get the oil in the end, and we just need to make sure that the wheel that is the WEP and the GPO is squeaking the loudest, and that this continues to be a front burner issue in both parties in Congress, and that we can finally get some resolution to it. So with that, I'm going to log off for today. Hopefully, if you're in Central Mass on Tuesday, come on by the Auburn Elks at 11. I'd love to see you in person. But with that, have a great weekend, and thank you for your continued support of Mass Retirees. Bye-bye, everybody.